Now we're going to shift from talking about competitive advantage to another topic that I think is equally important, and that is pricing. We're going to talk a little bit about pricing. So if you would turn to that next page in your handout and start with this quote from Warren Buffett. In his mind, the single most important business decision in evaluating a business is their pricing power. Warren Buffett has been very successful in picking businesses for investment purposes. And one of the most important criteria for him when he looks at a business is their pricing power. And pricing power means how much leverage do they have in terms of either raising their prices or lowering their prices? To what degree is a business capable of doing that? So I'd like to hear a couple examples of how you set your prices. How does your company set your prices? So let's start with Melanie. How about for you? How do you determine when you're working with authors, right? How do you determine your pricing?
We have different levels of packages.
Mhm.
And so the ones that offer more services, obviously, like the more marketing and more like book formats cost more. But like we evaluate an author. Some authors need all that. Like we worked with Jamie Roots, the president of the Houston Texans, and he needed to have full blown everything because he was at that stage. A beginning business owner maybe doesn't need all those bells and whistles, so we roll them into something that's lower price for them. And then we base our price and how we set it also for as we've grown. Before it was just my business partner and I. Now we have employees, we have software, we have all these other expenses. So we've had to raise the prices accordingly because the expense of the product went up.
Okay, excellent. So you identified several factors. One is, what is it that the customer needs in terms of service level? And we have a price for different levels of service. And then secondly, based on your costs, your overhead, your expenses, and making sure that you've got enough margin to cover those. So very good examples of pricing strategies. So here's a little bit of trivia. I promise you, the next networking event, cocktail party you go to, nobody will know the answer to this question. Who invented the price tag?
Oh my gosh.
Anyone want to guess? Who invented the price tag? It was the Quakers. The Quakers, way back in Pennsylvania, are recognized for being the first people to ever use price tags on the goods that they were selling, the Quakers. Prior to that, everything, products and services, very common, everything was haggled and negotiated, right? You went into a store and you negotiated the price for milk, you negotiated the price for food. Imagine going into Winn-Dixie or Publix or wherever you shop today and negotiating on every item that you're purchasing. Oh, we've come a long ways, but the Quakers are known for the first ones to actually use price tags. So let me go back to my screen now. So in setting prices, there are a number of considerations that we have to make. The first consideration is the positioning of our product or service in the mind of the consumer. How do they perceive us? Do they perceive us as being high-end in terms of what we sell? Do they see us as being on the low end in terms of what we sell? Do they see us as being experienced? How do they perceive our product or service? That's one factor that comes into place. The second factor is our customers, and specifically how what's referred to as price elasticity of demand. If you've ever taken a microeconomics class, you might have learned of price elasticity of demand, but essentially price elasticity of demand, PED, calculates the percentage change in demand relative to a percentage change in price. i.e., if you raise a price, to what degree will consumers either purchase more of your product, purchase less, or purchase the same? We call that price elasticity of demand. And as example, if you're selling essentially a commodity item meaning everybody thinks your product is just like everybody else's, there's usually a very high price elasticity of demand, meaning if you raise your price, they're going to go buy that product from someone else. So the second factor in determining pricing is understanding kind of the mindset of your customers in terms of price elasticity of demand. And then the third factor that you will consider, we already heard an example of this in setting your prices, are your costs. And you have different types of costs. You have, as we heard before, you may have material costs, you may have labor costs, you've got your operating costs, your overhead costs. And so we recognize that. And in setting our prices, we want to make sure that we're covering each of those different types of costs. So these are the three of the factors that we consider in establishing our prices.